Have you ever held on to a grudge or a past mistake so tightly that it started to define who you are? Did you notice what happened to your spirit? Sometimes, when we carry the weight of what's gone, the path forward becomes impossible to walk. Once upon a time, in a hard-working town nestled in the American heartland, there lived a man named Caleb. Caleb was a man of great potential, but he lived his life looking in the rearview mirror. Years ago, he had lost a small family business, and since then, he carried that failure like a heavy lead chain around his neck. Every time Caleb tried something new, applying for a management job or starting a community garden, he would bring up his old failure. He told his neighbors, "I'm trying this, but you know how I messed up before. I'm just waiting for the floor to drop out again." People offered him sympathy. They patted him on the back and said, "It's okay, Caleb. We all stumble." Caleb felt a strange relief in their pity. It made him feel seen, but it also gave him an excuse. When things got even slightly difficult in his new projects, he would quit, telling everyone, "See, I told you I wasn't cut out for this." He felt a bitter sort of pride in being right about his own misfortune. This pattern continued for nearly a decade. Caleb talked about his bad luck at the local diner every morning. People listened and nodded, but their eyes eventually grew tired. Caleb's hands stayed idle, and his heart grew heavier. He felt stuck in a loop of his own making, unable to understand why he couldn't just move on. One Saturday, Caleb was sitting on his porch, staring at a rusted-out truck in his driveway that he'd promised to fix years ago. An old mechanic named Walt, known for being a man of few words and much wisdom, pulled up in a pristine classic Ford. Walt sat down on the porch step and asked simply, "Caleb, why do you keep that junker in the drive if you aren't going to turn a wrench on it?" Caleb sighed. "It's a reminder, Walt. A reminder of when things went south. I don't want to forget what happens when you dream too big." Walt looked at him with a steady gaze. "Come by my shop tomorrow at sunrise. I've got something to show you." The next morning, Caleb met Walt at the garage. Walt handed Caleb 2 heavy buckets. "I want you to walk to the end of the property and back," Walt said. "But in the first bucket, I want you to carry these smooth river stones. In the second, I want you to carry this jagged, rusty scrap metal." Caleb took the buckets. As he walked, the bucket with the scrap metal cut into his leg. The sharp edges rattled and snagged his clothes. It was painful and awkward. When he returned, Walt took the bucket of smooth stones and set it on a sturdy workbench. He took the bucket of jagged metal and dumped it into a deep, dark hole in the back of the lot, covering it with heavy dirt. Days passed, and Walt had Caleb come back to the shop daily. He taught Caleb how to polish the smooth river stones until they shone like gems. Walt never mentioned the scrap metal in the hole again. Slowly, Caleb stopped thinking about the jagged edges that had cut him. One afternoon, Caleb looked at the workbench covered in beautiful polished stones. "What about the metal we buried?" he asked. Walt stood tall and spoke firmly. "Caleb, a man's spirit is like a plot of land. If you keep the sharp, broken pieces of your past out in the open, they'll cut you every time you move. They'll rust in the rain and poison the soil. But if you bury them, if you let them stay hidden in the dark earth of what was, you can focus your strength on polishing what's now." Caleb realized then that by constantly talking about his past failures, he was keeping the jagged metal right in his hands. He was using his energy to describe the pain, rather than using that same energy to build something new. The sympathy of others was like a bandage on a wound he refused to let heal. "Your past needs the silence of the grave," Walt said, placing a calloused hand on Caleb's shoulder. "Stop giving it life with your words. Let it stay buried so you have the strength to carry the future." Caleb went home and made a choice. He stopped talking about the business he lost. He stopped explaining why he was damaged goods. He went to that rusted truck in his driveway and, without saying a word to anyone, started cleaning the engine. Because he wasn't telling everyone about his attempt to fix the truck, there was no pressure. There were no pitying looks when he hit a snag. He worked in the quiet of his garage, his mind focused only on the task at hand. Weeks turned into months. He made mistakes, he got greasy, and he learned. One morning, the roar of a V8 engine echoed through the neighborhood. Caleb backed the truck, now painted a deep, glossy blue, out of the driveway. A neighbor stopped and stared. "Caleb, I didn't even know you were working on that. She looks brand new." Caleb just nodded and smiled. "She just needed a little quiet time in the shop." From that day on, Caleb became the man who got things done. He opened a small repair shop, but he never put up a sign that told his life story. He let the quality of his work speak for him. People respected him not for the tragedies he survived, but for the value he created today. Now, think about your own life. How much of your energy is spent explaining your past hurts or your old failures? How many times have you kept a wound open just so people would acknowledge your pain? When you constantly speak of your anchors, you never give yourself permission to sail. Let the past stay in the dark soil. Let it be the foundation you walk on, not the weight you carry. The world doesn't need to hear about the person you used to be. It needs to see the person you are becoming. So, next time you feel the urge to explain your failures or vent about your past, pause. Stay quiet. Let the silence heal you. When you are finally ready to move, your actions will be so loud that your past won't even be a whisper.